Hi everyone, welcome to my Those Eyeshadows finale. This project was created by Alexie. I'm going to leave her channel down below. But if you're not familiar, this project is very popular on YouTube and I guess on other social media platforms as well. And the goal of this project is to hit pan on your eyeshadows. So everyone does it differently, but the way that I do it is I randomly select 5 eyeshadows. One of them comes from my focus palette, and my goal is to hit pan on them. And once I hit pan on one or more, I can replace them with a different randomly selected eyeshadow. So my goal for this year was to have 50 pans in my collection, and later on I changed it to 60 pans because I hit 50 pan goal earlier this year, so I thought I would challenge myself a little more and hit 10 more pans. And I'm going to tell you in closer to the end of the video if I did manage to hit that goal. But other than that, let me just show you my progress. And yeah, but as always, before I get into the project itself, I just wanted to remind you yet again that the war in Ukraine hasn't ended yet, so if you'd like to help, I'm going to list a few organizations that accept donations in the description box down below. If you have the funds and if you're comfortable with donating, please do. It is very important and meaningful. But yeah, other than that, let's just talk about eyeshadow. Okay, so the first shade I'm going to talk about comes from this palette, which is Estate Cosmetics or State Makeup Venice Fling palette in collaboration with Baileysarian. The shade that I had from this palette is actually the second shade this year from this palette that I've gotten in this particular project. But the one that I was working on this time was called Roller Skates. I used it a total of 7 times, and here's what it's looking like today. I hope you can see. I did end up hitting pan on it, which is very exciting. And it's a pretty sizable pen, which I'm pretty proud about. But yeah, so I mentioned in the previous update that this is one of the shades that I would like to hit pan on by the end of the project, and as you can see, I did end up fulfilling that goal. So now this palette has 2 pans, which is pretty cool. Here's what this shade is looking like swatched out. As you can see, it's just this royal purple metallic, or I mean not a metallic, like a satin shade. It has like a faint hint of blue in there, like blue sparkle, but it's very subtle, so I don't know if you'll be able to even see it on camera. It's an okay shade. It's not my favorite. I personally like this particular tone of purple. I don't know if it even is royal purple. It's like a warm purple. I feel like royal purple is more blue. I don't know. Let me know if what would you call a royal purple. Yeah, so I personally prefer more cool toned purples, and when it comes to metallics, colorful metallics, or I mean colorful non-mattes, let's say it that way, I prefer sparklier shades. So yeah, this shade isn't my all-time favorite thing, but it was fun to play around with it and to find ways that I like to use it, such as what kind of toppers I like to combine it with. So that was pretty fun to try out different shades over it. But yeah, I'm very happy to be done with the shade and have one more pan in my collection. So let's just talk about the next shadow. Okay, so the next shade I'm going to talk about comes from my Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette. I've rolled in this shade, which is called Wild, at the same time as Roller Skates, and I've used it a total of 12 times. And here is what it's looking like today. I don't know if you can see, but I did end up hitting pan on it. I feel like the pan is really hard to see because of how shiny this shadow is on itself, or by itself, or on its own, I don't know. But I hope you can see it. Yeah, so it's this shade over here, as I hope you could tell. Here's a swatch of it. It's a very beautiful mauve shimmer, very shiny and very sparkly, very metallic, just overall great shade. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun to play around with the shade. I used it a lot as a one shadow look, sort of, with like black eyeliner in the waterline, which I mentioned before, and I really like that kind of look, so it was a lot of fun using this shade. And I got to use this palette, which I use very rarely, unfortunately, even though it has very beautiful shimmers in it. But these shimmers pull a little more on the neutral side, which I feel like not everyone might agree with that statement, but to me these are more of a neutral kind of shimmers. Even though we have like this purple and green, I feel like they are purple and green that are not as bright as purple and green could be. So as beautiful as it is, I don't reach for it as much as I should, but I'm great that this project pushed me to use this palette. So yeah, one more pan in my collection, which is very exciting. But let's just talk about the third shade that I've been working on. Alright, so the next shade I'm going to talk about is actually our first matte, and it comes from this palette, which is by Kimchi Chic. It's called Matte Maxine Suit Yourself. I finally know the name of it. And the shade that I have from this palette is called Spiked. I used Spiked 8 times, and here is what it's looking like today. As you can see, I don't have pan in it, but we do have a pretty good dip, which is nice. Yeah. Here's what it's looking like swatched out, by the way. It's a very pretty bright green, but it's like bright and grungy, which I think it's very fun. Yes, it's a pretty nice shadow. I'm very happy to have it. I was pretty happy to have it in my rotation for, I think it was 2 months. Because my what do you call it, my color story was pretty neutral heavy, so it was nice to have something as bright and fun as this shade. I'm actually wearing it today, and a lot of the shades I'm wearing are actually from this palette. So I used Spiked in my inner half of the eye, and on the outer half of the eye I used this kind of bright, kind of, what would you call it, like fuchsia pink sort of shade called Beaver Tail, and I put Canteen or Ciantine, I don't know, it's like there's a space between C and T. I don't know how to read that. But yeah, I'm just gonna call it Canteen. I put this on my lid, and then I used a different palette that has more sparkly shadows and topped it over this and put some in my inner corner. And yeah, I really like this look and I really like this shade. Yeah, let's just talk about the last two shadows I've been working on. So the next shade I'm going to talk about was actually rolled in last update, and it comes from my Noctex Future Grunge palette. The shade that I have from this palette is called Force Field, and here is what Force Field is looking like today. Oh, I've used it twice, and I think you can tell because it doesn't look that different. It's this matte brown over here. I think you can see where I was focusing my brush, but I don't think there is a dip, which is not surprising because I just used it twice. Yeah, here's a swatch of this shade, by the way. It is a nice kind of mid-toned, sort of, a little deeper than mid-tone, but still not too dark, reddish brown. It's a very good quality shadow, and I think just the mattes in this palette, they're pretty impeccable. But yeah, I haven't used it much, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about this particular shadow, so let's just talk about our last shade. And finally, the last shade I'm going to talk about comes from my Focus palette. I rolled in this shade at the same time as Force Field, which was last update. And if you're new here, it's interesting you chose a finale as your first video of mine, but no judgment. Yeah, if you're new here, my Focus palette for this year was this one, which is Me Menu by The Balm. And the shade that I have from this palette currently, right, the shade that I have been working on from this palette at this moment, I don't know why I was blanking out on what I was supposed to say. Anyway, the shade name is Matte Abdul, and I've used it a total of 9 times, and here's what it's looking like today. I hope you can see I actually did hit pan on the shade, which I did not expect to happen. So I'm very excited about that. Here's what the shade looks like swatched out. I really like the shadow, if I'm being honest. It's like a taupey gray, like transition shade, I would say, or like a mid-tone taupey gray. And I am a big fan of cool tones, so I really enjoyed using this shade. If you remember last update when I rolled in this shade, I was like, oh, it's going to take me a long time to hit pan on this one because it's pretty hard pressed. And just before rolling this shade in, I was working on Matte Lombardy, which I had to use, I think it was like 60 times, almost 59 times to hit that little speck of pan. So I wasn't particularly helpful with Matte Abdul, but because it's a transition shade and I usually tend to really pack it on to make it as dark as it can possibly be, I did end up hitting pan on it, and I also used a different type of brush with it because this shade I was mostly mixing with this shade to make like a like a blending out shade or brow bone setting shade. So I wasn't using as much product and I was using a bigger brush, so that's why it took so long. But yeah, great shade, enjoyed using it. I think my favorite look with it was actually very simple. I just put this in my crease and on my lower lash line, and I would put matte malloy, which is the white, on my lid, and then some eyeliner and lashes, and it was just like a very pretty neutral look. So yeah, I guess that is it. So because this is the finale, I'm not going to be rolling in anything new, which is kind of sad because I had a pretty good update today. 3 pans. I don't remember the last time I had 3 pans in this project. Did I even have any like this year? I'm not sure. But yeah, we're not going to do the rolling in part of the video, so I guess I'm just going to talk about my goal for the year and if I ended up completing it, and after that we can wrap up this video. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my goal for the year was to have 50 pens in my collection, and as far as I remember, I started out at 25 pens, so I needed to hit 25 more to have the 50 mark or number, and I did end up hitting that goal just a few updates back, so I decided to change it to 60 pens to, I guess, keep the momentum or just continue to have a goal or something like that, whatever. So if my calculations are correct, I currently have 62 pens in my collection, which means I fulfilled and surpassed the goal that I set for myself, which is very exciting. It also means that I hit a total of 37 pens this year, which I feel like is a pretty good number. So yeah, this project was a lot of fun, and it was even more fun to have you comment and just react to my videos and chat with me in the comment section. So thank you so much for engaging with my videos. It made this project even more exciting for me to just update. So I'm glad you're here. I guess it's time to wrap up this video. Yeah. Alright, so this is it for the finale of Pen Those Eyeshadows 2022. Here is another look at my last color story of the year. It was pretty interesting. I think I would have never paired all of these colors together, but I think it's actually a pretty fun combo. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching my videos, for following my project for this year. It means so much to have you here. But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your year, and hopefully I will see you next year if I did end up deciding to continue this project into the new year, because I am planning to go to grad school, and it is possible that I won't be living where I am living right now by the fall of next year, which I don't know how I'm going to, like, if that happens, how I'm going to continue making videos in a different setting. But that's a problem for another day, so I'm not gonna bore you with all that right now. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're doing good, and take care. Bye.